STEM, science, technology, engineering, mathematics, in terms of education, training and development, and the need for greater investment in STEM in Irish society and for systemic approach, and excuse my play on words, a systemic approach to STEM in our society. And this comes from, we look at where we are today as an economy. We've grown up from the 1950s and 1960s, was agriculture was the basis for our economy, and from that we generated a food industry. But today our industry, our industrial growth is based around ICT, pharma, biopharma, medical devices, biotechnology. They are all the growth industries, and they are all the knowledge-based jobs that are currently on the market now. And yet as a country we still haven't adopted a true approach to embedding STEM and an interest in STEM in our children, in our young adults, in our graduate pool, and in developing and converting skills through the lifetime of employment. And I think we need to look at taking a new approach to how we do this. And that's why I'm advocating for the position that we need to look at this from a systemic point of view. And if we look at engineering, and our company, Team Horizon, are an engineering services provider for the pharma, biopharma and medical devices sector. If we look at engineering, a recent survey conducted by the Guardian newspaper in London found that engineers have the happiest jobs in the world. Closely followed by teachers. I'm not sure Irish teachers would necessarily agree, but closely followed by teachers and nurses. Again, I'm not sure Irish nurses would agree. But certainly engineers do enjoy their work. They have a passion for their work. It's almost a crossover from their hobby and personal interests. And also, it has a very strong career path. There is an obvious career path for an engineer to develop during their career. And in general, they are involved in very interesting projects. Certainly in our own case, our engineers are involved in very interesting and demanding projects that allow for new drugs to be developed and produced in various sites and pharma plants in Ireland, Europe and the US. And they like that kind of approach, and that's what makes their jobs happy. And secondly, a survey in the US has found that after doctors, engineers have the highest placement rate on graduation out of any career profession. So as a career and a path, it should be an obvious one for the next generation to consider. But our problem is demand and supply aren't meeting. There's a huge demand in Ireland. I think approximately 2,000 jobs are currently available in STEM, but our graduate pool is not matching that demand. Even though applications on CAO for science and technology and engineering courses last year increased by approximately 1,000, we don't still fulfill the demand that's there. And that's the current demand. That's not taking into account the approximate 700 million that's been invested this year in Ireland alone in the pharma sector. And in the pharma sector, we've now got the fourth largest cluster of pharmaceutical manufacturing and research and development in the world. We probably have the second or third largest ICT cluster in the world. But yet, as a country, we're still not producing enough STEM graduates to fulfill and fuel that and keep us in that global position. And why is that? Because we are doing a lot. If we look at the clients we have as a company ourselves, which are fairly representative of the pharma sector, their challenges to recruit and retain engineers are the same challenges we have as a business. They have the same problems in terms of being able to look at the engineering pool and the science pool and the ICT pool, and the engineers are just not there. So what as a country have we been doing about it? I suppose over the last 5 years we've seen a number of government initiatives, and they're all very welcome, be that action plans for jobs, Springboard, SFI's new discovery programme. The Department of Education have launched a new STEM education review group. And then you have, I suppose, what we might call private or partnership initiatives like Engineers Week and also Coda Dojo. But all of these seem to be acting independent of each other. There doesn't seem to be a cohesive national approach and STEM strategy. And I think that's what we need to look at and look for. It's a more cohesive approach, a national strategy that looks at STEM and says STEM is probably the most important investment we can make as a country for the next generation. And how do we make STEM more interesting? For those of you who have children or children that have gone through junior cert or leaving cert, you know the struggle that students have with maths and the fact that it isn't applicable to the real world. How do we convert our curriculum to make that more interesting to students? How do we develop a national strategy that actually can fulfill the potential this country has in the ICT and the pharma sectors in particular? And not just in the research and development end of the pharma sectors, but in manufacturing excellence. In the 70s and 80s, we saw Asia come up as the manufacturing center of the world. Yet, most of the global top 10 pharmaceutical companies, manufacturing bases for EMEA, are based in Ireland. That says something about our ability to manufacture with excellence, to have high OE rates, to compete globally with other plants. And internally within the multinational world, plants compete against each other. And Ireland still wins more than its fair share of that business. How can we continue to do that if we're not producing the graduates that can keep fulfilling that need? And so we need to look at, I suppose, a new approach. And when I'm looking at those statistics that support those jobs, some things that, whilst I'm very welcome for what the government has done, I think a hell of a lot more needs to be done. And if we look at some of the statistics that support the actions in these programs, Action Plans for Jobs 2016 has 295 action initiatives in it. Only one action refers to STEM out of 295 actions. The Action Plan for Jobs specific actions has 264. It has a section on ICT skills, but there isn't one mention of the word engineer or engineering in the entire 264 actions. If we look at the STEM Education Review Group set up by Minister Sherlock in 2013, the public or the business representatives in that group, there are two. They're both from the ICT industry. There's nobody from applied sciences, from life sciences, or from high-end food industries in that, where STEM is critically important as well. So there seems to be a focus on ICT rather than the broader STEM careers that are available and the broader STEM industries that Ireland needs to support. The SFI Discovery Programme, which again is there to support STEM and STEM investment, its focus is on the R&D end of STEM and STEM development rather than looking at the manufacturing excellence requirements we have as a country. And I suppose shockingly, if we look at something like Springboard, which has been seen to be a major initiative collaboration between government and the third level institutions, if you do a simple search on Springboard courses, there are currently 33 ICT courses available. There are currently 15 construction courses available. And would anybody like to hazard a guess on how many engineering courses are available? 3. So 33 ICT courses, but only 3 engineering courses. So again, a huge emphasis on ICT, which I would fully support, but the wider engineering, pharma and biopharma sector are not being well supported by this. And that's seen with the engagement they have with the new Apprenticeship Council. Although it's in its infancy, the participation and collaboration of the pharma and biopharma sector made with that council has been very, very limited. And we need to find ways to encourage and change that. So we do need a new approach. We do need to think differently. Okay, Albert Einstein said education is not the learning of the facts, it's the training of the mind to think. And we need to look at our education system and how do we change our education system from being one that's based on rote learning to one that's based on creativity, collaboration, team development. And that's a new approach we need to see in this country in our education system. And it has to be delivered by our education system. And some very simple examples here of what other countries have been doing that I think we could take some lessons from. So there's a Cambridge school, national school, primary school in the UK that has put engineering on the curriculum for 7 years. And the headmaster has said, and I'll just read it out, the whole point is that you are not telling your children how to solve a problem. That's what makes it different from other subjects. You tell them what you want to achieve and how they come up with the ideas. We want to spur children to do engineering. But even if they don't go on to be engineers, being creative and working in teams is highly relevant for many jobs. So this idea of allowing children to express their creativity, to discover where their strengths and interests are, rather than taking a rote learning approach that most of us here would have to done for our leaving cert, where I can't even, Pythagoras' theorem is the only theorem I'll ever remember, and I did get an honour in maths in the leaving cert, just. And an application of a theorem in my life I've never had to do. So you ask yourself, what is our education system training our children for? When it should be looking at what are the key careers, not just from an economic point of view, but from a well-being point of view, going back to what I talked about earlier, that engineers have the happiest jobs in the world. Surely we want for our children to be happy and to be successful. And to do that, we need to open up their opportunities. We need to allow them to express themselves and be creative and discover where their careers might lie, rather than teaching them on a rote learning basis. At third level in Canada, a School of Design Engineering is allowing students to participate with clients from year one. So as a year one student, you're actively engaged in real life projects with real life clients, preparing yourself for the workplace, allowing you to work in competitive teams, and allowing you to develop your career set and better understand the industry you're going to work in. In Ireland, we see that more and more now in third year in college, particularly in the Institutes of Technology, less so in universities. But we need to see more and more of that level of engagement at third level as well. If we look at, I talked earlier about the 1 minute, I talked about that kind of national strategic approach, which is something the United States has adopted, driven by President Obama, where they've taken a very cohesive, systemic approach to STEM education. And that's something in Ireland we need to achieve as well. And women in engineering, a huge lack in the marketplace. In our own teams, we find in our business, and we've over 50 engineers working in pharma and biopharma, we find our teams are more productive, are more creative when there's a balance between male and female engineers on the teams. Because as much as men or women would like to think they're the best at anything, it's actually the collaboration of the two that brings the best out of a team. So encouraging more women in engineering is critically important to us as well. And I want to leave you with a final thought, which I think surmises where the challenge in STEM lies. And this is from a 5th year student in Sacred Heart School in Westport, Team Horizon's head office is based in Westport. And she talks about, this was done at a debating competition in Mayo that was held last year. Like many of you here today, have been discriminated against in Ireland's education system. I attend an all-girls school where the subject choices that are offered to me are limited, and I, for one, do not have the opportunity to choose subjects such as metalwork or tech drawing, to name but a few. Instead, I have the option of doing home economics. I'm going to use the emphasis that she put on the last sentence. I'm taught how to look after a house and a family, but not taught something that may give me an equal career path later in life, such as engineering. And I think that is the greatest challenge we have for our children today, is to develop a systemic approach to STEM so that our children, the businesses and industries we work in, can continue to prosper and grow, and Ireland's economy can prosper and grow with it. Thank you very much.
If anybody has a question to take it, I've got one in any event. Any questions? Yes?
I just wonder if you brought that up where you're going to have an exam in schools and it's collaboration and teamwork, how would you identify the people that are doing well and there'll be a team working along with the team? Would your result just be because you happen to be with a good team as opposed to being have you any ideas on it?
Could you just repeat?
So it's Fergus. So Fergus is asking, I suppose, at school level, if you're trying to encourage that team approach, team-based thinking, team-based creativity at school, how do you measure and monitor that? I think schools that do that anyway with projects, and I think the same principles apply from, I suppose, a work environment as they would in a school. I think you have to evaluate and supervise and overview what the team are doing. And if somebody isn't contributing like we do in the workplace, you have to bring them aside and encourage them to participate to a certain level and tell people there's an acceptable level to participate at. And I suppose reward the ones that are seen to be going beyond that level. So I think our children do tend to perform better, and I think all of us perform better when we're recognised and rewarded for the work we do.
My question for you, Robert, what does Team Horizon do, and how do you help this process?
So Team Horizon is a business, we're 5 years old. We were founded by 2 engineers. Mr. McLean there, please put your hand up, is one of those engineers. And Mark McLean and Aidan Corcoran is the other. We've grown from a business based on our founders to a business now with over 50 engineers working in the pharma, biopharma, medical devices sector. We specialise on the last 40% of the manufacturing process, and we focus on building the manufacturing process around the product. So we start with the product and then we build and support that pharmaceutical plant to build the most efficient operating system and manufacturing line that is possible to support the production of that product. Be that a vial or a powder or whatever it might be, depending on the pharma or biopharma sector. From our point of view, our biggest challenge right now is recruiting engineers. And not just any engineers. Coming back to, I suppose, the previous speaker, it's hugely important to us in our culture and our organisation that you're team fit. Because our engineering is a team-based exercise. It's very rare for us to carry out individual projects where it only involves one engineer. It involves a team, be it on site, based in the office, but also it involves a team in terms of collaboration with clients. So we take very much a team approach. In terms of trying to recruit, we participate in Engineers Ireland STEPS programme, we're participating in Engineers Week, we do school visits, we are very supportive of campaigning for women in engineering, and we also have a positive view towards graduate recruitment and graduate engineers.
Thank you very much, Robert.